Good. It's such a pleasure that we are back again after a beautiful 1 year journey together, reading autobiography of a yogi. So this seemed a perfect. The next step is to read Swamiji's autobiography of a yogi, and because we get to understand our master more through this book of a disciple living with him and experiencing what living with a master is all about. Autobiography of a yogi master, almost, he was so humble that he almost projected as if he was meeting other saints and trying to understand what it is. Whereas he told Swami Priyananda and other monks once that I killed Yogananda long ago. No one lives in this body but God, which means he was born an avatar, and this was a leela. What autobiography of a yogi, all the experiences, all the things that he had written. So this is a good way to understand a little bit more our guru. So let us sit up straight and tense the whole body. Relax couple of times more. Inhale, bring all the tension of the day gone by, physical, mental, emotional, and let them all go. One last time. Bring our hands in front of our heart. Let's tense. Let's inhale and interlace the finger. Exhale in front. Inhale up. Exhale, hands behind our backs, interlace the fingers. Inhale, opening our hearts. Bringing the hands back as we exhale. We'll do this 2 more times. This is to open our hearts for the Guru, for God, for understanding these deep, deep teachings. So inhale, interlace the fingers. Exhale. Inhale up. Exhale. Inhale and exhale back in front of our hearts. One last time, inhale deeply, interlace the fingers, exhale, letting go, rounding the shoulders. Inhale, joy. Exhale, hands behind the back, interlace the fingers. Inhale, opening the hearts, the shoulder blades touching each other. Exhale, hands back in front of our hearts. Closing our eyes, gazing at the point between the eyebrows, opening our hearts, invoking the presence of God and Guru's here with us. Let's pray together, Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend, beloved God, great masters of Kriya Yoga, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, beloved Gurudev, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, saints and sages of all religions, dear friend and guide, Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow at thy feet. O great ones, be with us here today. Help us to feel thy tangible presence here with us. As we read this book, we are embarking on a new journey. Guide our thoughts, help our understanding. Bless us. We are thine. Be thou eternally ours. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we will chant first and then start together. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Brahmananda Parama Sukha
साक्षीभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धु च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I wait for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee.
Let's for a moment pause here, absorbing the words of this chant, calling out to God and Gurus, just for a few moments. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So today, I hope all of you have the book, The New Path. If not, those who are in Gurgaon can pick it up from the center. it is good to have it with us because it is good to have it with us because there might be something that we want to note down on the book itself for our better understanding. Otherwise, we will also share a link which has the book online also. So whatever works for you. Today we will start with the first chapter, but before that, we will start with the introduction, where Swamiji talks about why he found the need to write this book and what was the purpose. And for all of us, especially, when we were going through our various level 1, level 2 classes, in level 3, this was almost like a textbook for all of us. Because if we want, we were going to take discipleship. So if we want to understand what discipleship means, this book it's like a Bible for us then, because Swamiji, when he was just 22, he read Autobiography of a Yogi and then took the next bus, traveled all the way 4 days to meet his guru. And since then, all his life, till he passed away at 84 or 85 years of age, all his life, all he was doing was sharing the teachings of his guru, trying to be a better disciple. And when anybody asked, like, what is your goal? What do you want? He said, I hope my guru feels I have been a good disciple. So that is a standard that is we have to look up to, is what to be a disciple means. So this book is very important to each one of us who are on this path, who have received Kriya Yoga and want to understand the path, understand how to be a disciple, a better disciple. So for that, this book is excellent. So let us start with the introduction now.
The New Path, My Life with Paramahansa Yogananda by Swami Kriyananda, J. Donald Walters. Introduction to this revised edition, Swami Kriyananda. Since the first publication of this book, 30 years ago, it has appeared in several editions and languages. Recently I reread it and decided that after so many years, it could do with revision. And though the same number of years of my own life have passed also, bringing me now to the age of 82, I decided not to bring the reader comparably up to date on my own life. Essentially, indeed, this book was never intended to be an autobiography, so much as an account of my life with Paramahansa Yogananda. My basic purpose was to tell about his life from the perspective of a disciple. This would, I felt, fill a much neglected need. I've written here about the deep humility which caused him in his autobiography to relate more about other great saints he had known than about himself. Indeed, the average reader might receive the impression from that autobiography that the author himself was not even a master, but simply a devout, earnest spiritual seeker which had the good fortune to meet all those saints. What I have done here, then, is complete the story of his life from an objective point of view. In this sense, I might even have titled this book A Gospel of Paramahansa Yogananda, were it not for the fact that I have also written other books containing hundreds more of his sayings. This book is also, and primarily, a sequel to Yogananda's autobiography, which, I am told, has become the best-selling spiritual autobiography of all time, and is still, after more than 60 years, among the 10 best-selling spiritual books in the world. The underlying saga of my own life has been universal in that it has mostly been a search for truth. Thus, this book is really more concerned with principles than with persons or events. My story, detailed in part 1 of this book, begins with my boyhood search. I sought by many paths, scientific, political, artistic, literary, dramatic, religious, philosophical, and finally spiritual. My hope is that this book will touch a receptive chord in others, for what I have dealt with here is a search that is central to the life of every man. One day, a disciple asked Yogananda, "Will I ever leave the spiritual path?" "How could you?" the master asked. "Everyone in the world is on the spiritual path." This book is an attempt to demonstrate the truth of those words. I met Paramahansa Yogananda on September 12th, 1948, at the age of 22. I had just read his autobiography. It had inspired me to take the next bus across the country, from New York to Los Angeles, where he lived. So deeply had this book affected me that the first words I addressed to him, they would have been inconceivable for me even 1 week earlier, were, "I want to be your disciple." The Guru must have seen how desperate I was for the truths he had to share, for he accepted me at that very meeting as a monastic disciple. From then on I lived with him for the remaining 3.5 years of his life and have served him in his work throughout my life.
And now we start with the first chapter. And interesting that he calls the pilgrim whittles his staff. I just, okay, let's first hear it and then we will discuss.
Part 1, Chapter 1. The pilgrim whittles his staff. There are times when a human being, though perhaps not remarkable in himself, encounters some extraordinary person or event that infuses his life with great meaning. My own life was blessed with such an encounter more than 60 years ago, in 1948. Right here in America, of all lands the epitome of bustling efficiency, material progressiveness, and pragmatic know-how, I met a great God-known master whose constant vision was of eternity. His name was Paramahansa Yogananda. He was from India, though it would be truer to say that his home was the whole world. Had anyone suggested to me prior to that meeting that so much radiance, dynamic joy, unaffected humility, and love might be found in a single human being, I would have replied, though perhaps with a sigh of regret, that such perfection is not attainable by man. And had anyone suggested to me further that divine miracles have occurred in this scientific age, I would have laughed outright. For in those days, proud as I was in my intellectual 20th century so-called wisdom, I mocked even the miracles of the Bible. No longer. I have seen things that made a mockery of mockery itself. I know now from personal experience that divine wonders do occur on earth. And I believe that the time is approaching when countless men and women will no more think of doubting God than they doubt the air they breathe. For God is not dead. It is man only who dies to all that is wonderful in life, when he limits himself to worldly acquisitions and to advancing himself in worldly eyes, but overlooks those spiritual realities which are the foundation of all that he truly is. Paramahansa Yogananda often spoke of an America's high spiritual destiny. When I first heard him do so, I marveled. America? All that I knew of this country was its materialism, its competitive drive, its smug, no-nonsense attitude toward anything too subtle to be measured with scientific instruments. But in time that great teacher made me aware of another aspect, an undercurrent of divine yearning, not in our intellectuals perhaps, our self-styled cultural representatives, but in the hearts of the common people. Americans' love of freedom, after all, began in the quest centuries ago for religious freedom. Their historic emphasis on equality and on voluntary cooperation with one another reflects principles that are taught in the Bible. Americans' pioneering spirit is rooted in these principles. And when no frontiers remained to our people on the North American continent, and they began exporting their pioneering energies abroad, again, it was the spirit of freedom and willing cooperation that they carried with them. In these twin principles, Paramahansa Yogananda saw the key to mankind's next upward step in evolution. The vision of the future he presented to us was of a state of world brotherhood in which all men would live together in harmony and freedom. As a step toward this universal fulfillment, he urged those people who were free to do so to band together into what he called world brotherhood colonies, little spiritual communities where people living and working together with others of like mind would develop an awareness of the true kinship of all men as sons and daughters of the same one God. It has been my own lot to found the first such world brotherhood colonies, examples of what Yogananda predicted would someday become thousands of such communities the world over. Because the pioneering spirit is rooted in principles that are essentially spiritual, implying the perennial quest for a higher as well as a better way of life. That spirit has not only expanded men's frontiers outwardly, in recent decades especially, it has begun to interiorize them, to expand the inward boundaries of human consciousness, and to awaken in people the desire to harmonize their lives with truth and with God. It was to the divine aspirations of these pioneers of the Spirit that Paramahansa Yogananda was responding by coming to America. Americans, he said, were ready to learn meditation and God communion through the practice of the ancient science of yoga. There's a footnote here. Yoga, a Sanskrit word meaning union, or more exactly, self-integration. Yoga is also a system of psychophysical techniques for helping man to achieve conscious union with the infinite spirit, God. The yogi, a practitioner of the yoga science, acquires outwardly also a vision of the underlying unity of all life. To continue then, it was in the capacity of one of modern India's greatest exponents of yoga that he was sent by his great teachers to the West. In my own life and heritage, the pioneering spirit in all its stages of manifestation has played an important role. Numerous ancestors on both sides of my family were pioneers of the traditional sort, many of them ministers of the gospel and frontier doctors. My paternal grandparents joined the great land rush that opened up the Oklahoma Territory in 1889. Other ancestors played less exploratory but nonetheless active roles in the great adventure of America's development. Mary Todd, the wife of Abraham Lincoln, was a relative of mine. So also was Robert E. Lee, Lincoln's adversary in the Civil War. It pleases me thus to be linked with both sides of that divisive conflict, for my own lifelong inclination has been to reconcile contradictions, to seek, as Indian philosophy puts it, unity in diversity. My father, Ray P. Walters, was born too late to be a pioneer in the earlier sense. A pioneer, nevertheless, at heart. He joined the new wave of international expansion and cooperation, working for Esso as an oil geologist in foreign lands. My mother, Gertrude G. Walters, was a part of this new wave also. After graduating from college, she went on to study the violin in Paris. Both my parents were born in Oklahoma. It was in Paris, however, that they met. After their wedding, Dad was assigned to the oil fields of Romania, where they settled in Teleagen, a small Anglo-American colony about 3 kilometers east of the city of Ploiești. Teleagen was the scene of my own squalling entrance onto the stage of life. My body, typically of the American melting pot, is the product of a blend of several countries: England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, Holland, France, and Germany. It was little Wales, the smallest of these 7, that gave me my surname, Walters. For Kriyananda is a monastic appellation that I acquired only in 1955, when I was initiated into the ancient Swami order of India. The human body, through a process of birth, is a new creation. Not so the soul. I came into this world, I believe, already fully myself. I chose this particular family because I found it harmonious to my own nature, and felt that these were the parents who would best afford me the opportunities I needed for my own spiritual development. Grateful as I am to my parents for taking me in, a stranger, I feel less indebted to them for making me what I am. I have described them, their forebears, and the country from which they came, to show the trends with which I chose to affiliate, for whatever good I might be able to accomplish for myself, and, I hoped, for others. Everyone in this world is a pilgrim. He comes alone, treads his chosen path for a time, then leaves once more solitarily. His is a sacred destination, always dimly suspected, though usually not consciously known. Whether deliberately or by blind instinct, directly or indirectly, what all men are truly seeking is joy. Joy infinite, joy eternal, joy divine. Most of us, alas, wander about in this world like pilgrims without a map. We imagine joy's shrine to be wherever money is worshipped, or power, or fame, or good times. It is only after very distant roaming that, disappointed at last, we pause in silent self-appraisal. And then we discover, perhaps with a shock, that our goal was never distant from us at all, indeed never any further away than our own selves. This path we walk has no fixed dimensions. It is either long or short, depending only on the purity of our intentions. It is the path Jesus described when he said, "The kingdom of God cometh not with observation. Neither shall they say, Lo here, or Lo there. For, behold, the kingdom of God is within you." Walking this path, we yet walk it not. For the goal, being inward, is ours already. We have only to claim it as our own. The principal purpose of this book is to help you, the reader, to make good that claim. I hope in these pages to help you to avoid, among other things, a few of the mistakes I myself have made in my own search. For a person's failures may sometimes be as instructive as his successes. I was born in Teleagen on May 19th, 1926, at approximately 7 in the morning. James Donald Walters is the full name I received at christening in the little Anglican church in Ploiești. Owing to a plethora of Jameses in the community, I was always known by my second name, Donald, in which I was the namesake of a step-uncle, Donald Quarles, who later served as Secretary of the Air Force under President Eisenhower. James, too, was a family name, being the name of my maternal grandfather. It was my ultimate destiny, however, to renounce such family identities altogether in favor of a higher and more spiritual one. Mother told me that throughout her pregnancy she was filled inwardly with joy. Lord, she prayed repeatedly, this first child I give to thee. Her blessing may not have borne fruit as early as she had hoped, but bear fruit it did, gradually, one might almost say relentlessly, over the years. For mine is the story of one who did his best to live without God, but who, thank God, failed in the attempt.
Such a beautiful introduction. Uh, so, I just, when I read the chapter's title, The Pilgrim Whittles His Staff. So I kind of, Googled the meaning. What does this mean? Whittle says, like staff is a wooden staff that people carry, old people, but here in India, many of these swamis, they carry a staff, right? And whittling a staff means, carving that wood, cutting off small pieces so that a proper shape of what you wanted to make of it comes out. So such a beautiful title to this, The Pilgrim Whittles His Staff, where he says that we are all pilgrims, right? We are, from the time that the Spirit, put us out in the creation, we have been going around finding our final destination. So it is a pilgrimage. And it is good to remember that, rather, unfortunately, all of us get caught up and think this is it, this is my house, my area, my land, this is mine, this, and forget that we are just pilgrims. We are visiting. We will be off again. This first line, autobiography also has this first line that catches you. Again, here also, this first line, there are times when a human being, though perhaps not remarkable in himself, encounters some extraordinary person or event that infuses his life with great meaning. And what more than, finding a guru in this lifetime? I mean, if one needs to know what is the purpose of this lifetime that I came in, this is it, that we found, or rather, Guru came into our life. So, and this is how he says, his Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, that we all know. And again, he's saying that, how a master is. Our master he was radiant, full of dynamic joy, unaffected humility, love. And he says that if anybody would have said, I would have laughed, that such a person, that this is a perfection and it's impossible to find in a person. But then in a master, yes. But at that time, Swamiji didn't know, having, where he goes on to talk in further chapters where he says that he didn't really connect with the religion that he was born into. Even though his mother would keep taking him to the church and all, so he didn't find that joy. He didn't find what a religion is supposed to do. And that is what he was always seeking, it seems, right? So, and here, the next one, he says, I believe that the time is approaching when countless men and women will no longer think of doubting God than they doubt the air they breathe, for God is not dead. It is man who dies to all that is wonderful in life when he limits himself to worldly acquisitions and to advancing himself in worldly eyes. So this is even in autobiography of a yogi, where we spoke about this, that this is the cycle, the world, the creation goes through this cycle of yugas, right? So this cycle, Satyuga, then Treta, then Dwapar, then Kali Yuga, and then it again ascends. So the ascending and descending, that keeps happening. It's like kind of a spiral. And even though in India we believe we are still in Kali Yuga, we are actually, according to Sri Yukteswar, as he has given the perfect calculation and all. And he also explained how the error came to where, it seems like an endless Kali Yuga. He says we are now in ascending Dwapar Yuga. And that is why now, people are becoming aware. More and more people are seeking answers, unlike in Kali Yuga, where people were very passive and lived, and died the way life always was. People are seeking that there must be some reason, something more that we are all missing, right? We all did too. That is why we are here on this path, because we were also seeking, and that's how Guru came into our life. So this has just started. The yuga that we have, it's just 300 years into the Dwapar Yuga, and as we go in, more and more people will come to realize that life is not just about being born and living a normal mechanical life, growing up, getting married, having kids, and dying again. There is more to life. So, and he says, for God is not dead. There's an interesting story that when Paramahansa Yogananda had left the body Mahasamadhi, one of his disciples, he was a monk, he kind of felt lost, and he had gone to the Switzerland, and there he met another saint and asked him, will you take me as your disciple? And that saint said, but you already have a guru. Your guru is Paramahansa Yogananda. And the monk, this guy said, but he's dead. He said, no, you are dead. Your guru is very much alive. God is alive. We are dead. When he says it is man only who dies, we died because we are not even aware. We are like kind of living in a hallucinated world where we think this is the reality. So we are dead to what is the truth, what is the reality. So that is what he says, but overlooks those spiritual realities, which are the foundation to all that he truly is. Okay. Again, he says, Paramahansa Yogananda often spoke of America's high spiritual destiny. And this again is a very interesting story where Swami Kriyananda, when he went into this bookshop and saw autobiography of him, he was drawn to it. He was drawn to the face, to the eyes of the Guru on that page. But he opened, and the first thing that he reads is, Master has written the first page saying, the dedicated to an American saint, Luther Burbank. And Swami said, he was James Donald Walters at that time. He said, American saint? That's a joke. And he left the book and went away. And then, he has often talked about it, that next day again, when he walked past there was a definite force that pulled him back into that shop, and how he again went back and finally picked up that book. And then we all know, he just said in introduction also that it completely changed the way the way his life was proceeding. So that is what Master is also talking about, and that the American spirit, and as he says, which is the spirit of freedom and willing cooperation, which is a very important aspect, especially where when Swamiji went on to set up the brotherhood community, which Master always spoke of when he was in body. So this is what really helped to establish such a beautiful community there in America. Willing cooperation and spirit of freedom. He says these two twin principles, Paramahamsa Yogananda saw the key to mankind's next upward step in evolution. This is needed. It's a principle. He's not saying that, approach or attitude. He's saying this is the spiritual principle, that if the mankind has to evolve, these two things are important. The spirit of freedom and a willing cooperation. The vision of the future he presented to us was of a state of world brotherhood in which all men would live together in harmony and freedom. And that is why he would urge those people who are free to do so, to band together. So he always used to talk about creating these spiritual communities, world brotherhood communities, where, people who have the like-minded and wanting to know God, find God, come together and establish this, create those, small communities, which would later on, keep growing. And because the time has come, as Babaji also said, as Master wrote in Autobiography of Yogi, for the consciousness of man to evolve. because we are now in ascending Dwapar Yoga. So for that, it has to start at micro level and then, keep expanding into the macro level. Okay, he says that because the pioneering spirit is rooted in principles that are essentially spiritual, implying the perennial quest for a higher as well as better way of life. That spirit has not only expanded man's frontiers outwardly, but also it has begun to interiorize them, to expand the inward boundaries of human consciousness. He's written this so beautifully. And to awaken in people the desire to harmonize their lives with truth, with God. How do we how to expand the human consciousness is to attune our consciousness, human consciousness, with the divine consciousness. And this is where the Guru comes into the picture. We will talk about that later in further chapters. Here he says, it was in the capacity of one of modern India's greatest exponents of yoga that Paramahamsa Yogananda was sent by his great teachers to the West. Again, in autobiography, we read that the time has come where, and Jesus came to Babaji and said that my people have, forgotten my teachings. So please send somebody who will bring back the true Christianity to the West. And that is when Babaji then, the whole thing started. The Kriya Yoga was given to Lahiri Mahasaya. When he met Sri Yukteswar at the Kumbh Mela, he said, I will send you a disciple who you will train and send to the West. And when Master went to the West, somebody asked him, is this a new religion? He said, it's a new expression. The religion, you don't really, there is only one religion, which is Sanatan Dharma, which is a way of life, right? And that is what even Jesus taught. So he said, it's a new expression for the new world, modern world, right? So then he goes on to tell about his own life, how he was born, his family history and all. And again here, he says the human body through the process of birth is a new creation. Not so the soul. I came into this world, I believe, already fully myself. I chose this particular Master, when, tomorrow we are going to have, day after we are going to have this workshop on karma and reincarnation with the center. So this is what Master said, that the soul, when it passes away, there are always desires and regrets that it goes away with. If it didn't have that, it never has to come back to this world, right? So when the time, that those desires or regrets pull that soul back, the soul then reincarnates into, the soul chooses which parents, which environment, which family will give it the environment conducive to experience the karmas, the prarabdha karma that it comes back with. So the soul chooses, right? So he says, because I found it harmonious to my own nature and felt that these were the parents who would best afford me the opportunities I needed for my own spiritual development. So, and he says, grateful as I am to my parents for taking me in, a stranger, he says, I feel less indebted to them for making me what I am. Because then later on, what he is, it was more chiseled by his guru, right? And he had his own journey, which was beyond what the family had to offer for him. That is why he says this. So he is indebted to them for giving him a nice environment and, giving him that little boy who entered, a stranger, as he says. But then overall, what the soul had to experience was completely, what it had chosen for itself. And of course, what the guru had worked on him for him. So he says, everyone in this world is a pilgrim. He comes alone, treads his chosen path for a time, leaves once more solitarily. His is a sacred destination always dimly suspected, though usually not consciously. Most people are completely, hypnotized with this world. We start believing, this is our reality, my family, my job, my friends, and kind of, forget that we are just passing by. Whether deliberately or by blind instinct, directly or indirectly, what all men are truly seeking is joy. Joy infinite, joy eternal, joy divine, Satchidanand, right? That which is what finding God. As Master Adi Shankaracharya said, God is Satchidanand. And Master gave a beautiful explanation to this term, Satchidanand. He said, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. You don't tire of this joy, because anything else, any joy, happiness that we seek in this outside world dims. You want something, we get it, and couple of days we might be very happy after getting it. After that, it dims. Then we want something else. So, we are always seeking something else. But when we find God, it's an ever new. You never tire of it. And that is what all of us are seeking. Master said, everyone is seeking to be happy and to escape suffering. That is the goal of all human beings, right? And not just be happy, to be in joy, eternal bliss. And he says most of us, alas, wander about in this world like pilgrims without a. I think somebody's unmuted. So most of us are just wandering around, lifetime after lifetime. We keep coming back. This desire not fulfilled, that regret, and again come back. So we are all moving around without a map. We imagine joy's shrine to be wherever money is worshipped. We put importance, we give importance to these outward things which are never going to stay forever, right? They are there for some time, but then it will be taken away. Somebody else will have it. Somebody will. But that is Maya, that to keep us, Sorry?
No.
Okay. So to keep us caught up in this. So that is the role of Maya, and most of us go about in this role of being caught up. So it is said, it is only after very distant roaming that, disappointed at last, we pause in silent self-appraisal, and then we discover, perhaps with a shock, that our goal was never distant from us at all. Indeed, never any farther away than our own selves. It is, as he goes on to say, the kingdom of God is within. What we are seeking is like that musk deer, which gets this beautiful fragrant smell and starts running around. Find where is that coming from, fragrance coming from. Keeps running, doesn't find it. Somebody is unmuted. Doesn't find it, and finally, jumps down the hillock because it is still seeking, and dies. And then the hunter comes and picks up the musk from its navel and takes it away and then sells it. So it, like that, we are also running around seeking happiness in outside world, whereas the joy is within, as which is our logo, at Ananda logo. The joy is within. That should be our affirmation all the time. Joy is within. And when he says, disappointed at last, we pause in self-appraisal. Yogananda said that, time and again, lifetime after lifetime, the soul comes and goes until it reaches a point of anguishing monotony, where the soul says, hey, wait a minute, this is, something is wrong here. And then, starts looking for a way out, find answers. What is this all about? And that is when the soul starts seeking, Guru comes. God sends the Guru. So, and here where he says that the principal purpose of this book is to help you, the reader, to make good that claim And he said, and such a beautiful thing, no? His mother, uh, she says, when she was during pregnancy with Swami Kriyananda, she was filled inwardly with joy, and obviously this baby was different, right? Um, it was God's gift. It was already a seeking one. So she says, she prayed, Lord, this first child I give to thee. And he says, her blessings may not have borne fruit as early as she had hoped, but bear fruit it did gradually. And beautifully ends it with, for mine is the story of one who did his best to live without God, but who, thank God, failed in this attempt. And hopefully, all of us also, live to find God in this lifetime itself. So we started this chapter and this book. We have a beautiful video that we would like to play of Swamiji before we end today's session.
Cerca in tutto il mondo dove l'umanità, nei piccoli paesi e nelle gran città, tu capirai che siamo fratelli, tu capirai che siamo fratelli. Vai in ogni casa, guarda con amore, ascolta ogni affanno, le gioie di ogni cuore, tu troverai soltanto fratelli, tu troverai soltanto fratelli. Diverse son le onde che vagano sul mar, ma sotto nel profondo c'è solo l'unità. Così in Dio siamo fratelli, così in Dio siamo fratelli. Diverse le parole e la mentalità, ma dentro ogni uomo c'è la divinità che dice siete tutti fratelli, che dice siete tutti fratelli. Fratelli siamo tutti figli del Signore, diversi nei vestiti ma simili nel cuore. In Dio siamo tutti fratelli, in Dio siamo tutti fratelli. Walk like a man, even though you walk alone. Why court approval once the road is known? Let come who will, but if they all turn home, the goal still awaits you. Go on alone. Follow your dream, though it lead to worlds unknown. Life's but a shadow, once our dreams have flown. What if men cry, your dream is not our own? Your soul knows the answer. Go on alone. Give life your heart. Bless everything that's grown. Fear not the loving. All this world's your own. Make rich the soil, but once the seed is sown, seek freedom, don't linger. Go on alone. Sei in un angolo del mondo, c'è la purezza, umiltà, vero amore, onestà. Fermati lì, null'altro avvalor. Is there anywhere on earth perfect freedom, sorrow's death, selfless friendship, blameless birth, cherished these, naught else has worth. Sei in un angolo del mondo, c'è la purezza, umiltà, vero amore, onestà. Fermati lì, null'altro avvalor. Is there anywhere on earth perfect freedom, sorrow's death, selfless friendship, blameless birth, cherished these, naught else has worth. Sei in un angolo del mondo, c'è la purezza, umiltà, vero amore, onestà. Fermati lì, null'altro avvalor. Dare to be different, dare to be free, dare to roam far like wind on the sea. Fly like a god, soar high on the air, be strong in your courage when others despair. Never in anger, never in haste, go without pride, be never abased. Freedom is yours if freedom you give. To all give it freely, in freedom you live. Mountains that stand up tall to the sky tell us no dreaming is ever too high. Dare to defy them, brave that high peak. You'll never know failure if victory you see. Dare to be different, dare to be free, dare to roam far fly like wind on the sea. Fly like a gull, soar high on the air. Be strong in your courage when others despair.
What a beautiful video that was. And with that, we come to the end of this session today. See you next Friday with the next chapter. Thanks for joining. See you.